So as many of you know, today's my dad's birthday. And over the years, he was always impossible to find a birthday gift for. You could never find something that he wanted or needed because he had everything that he wanted or needed. And today, I think we finally nailed it. We gave him what's been at the top of his wish list for 29 years. And as all gifts, the best gifts require great sacrifice. This one gives us the most pain to give up this woman that we love and have had such an indelible influence on our lives. To give her back, I think, is the greatest gift that we could offer our dear dad. I also know why now it makes sense, all the forgetfulness that is in my life now and where that comes from. Thanks, Dad. But, Mom was kind of a private soul. So a lot of her greatest characteristics were not quite so publicly visible. For example, you see in the foyer there's a big picture of a big 160-pound halibut with me and my brother next to it with Mom. She invited me and Dave to go big halibut and salmon fishing when she was around 70 out in Alaska on Kodiak Island. And in Alaska, it's illegal to have someone else reel in your fish. If you hook it, you got to bring it in. And she connected with a big fish. And so big that it literally knocked her on her back to the deck of the boat. And Dave and I rushed over, and sure enough, she still had the pole in her hands. And she pushed us aside and jumped up to her feet and spent the next 20 minutes fighting this big beast of a fish and reeled it in, much to our surprise. So her tenacity is one example. Another is her courage. Every year, almost every year, my family would have Mom join us on our ski trips to Utah, which she loved doing. But she is beloved and renowned among my own kids and some of my good friends who joined us for her high-flying acrobatics, her aerials. Well, probably that would be Hansenizing too, her high-flying wipeouts, to be more accurate. But she would always get back up, whether her face was covered with snow or not, and never complain, and was willing to keep going. Her sense of humor is another thing that, especially in these later years, we have just treasured. Every time we would visit Grandma, we'd come back, or our kids would visit, we'd all come back and say, well, what did Grandma say today? Because she always had something that would just leave us rolling in laughter. For example, when Marin went with our little granddaughter Annie, 2-year-old, and she had one of those blowout diapers, and Marin didn't have a spare diaper and was pretty stressed. Grandma noticed it and looked at her and said, I got you, girl. And she led her back up to her apartment, and she said, do you keep diapers up here? And she pulled out an adult, disposable, and strapped it on and tied knots and cinched it up, and no one was worse for the wear. Or when she was after going through a real tough procedure, and she had no appetite, and I'm sitting here dining with her and just helping her through, and I saw her reach over and take a big bowl of butter, or a big scoop of butter, and ate it. And I said, Mom, do you know that you just ate butter and nothing else? And she looks over at me and just says, that's the point. So, those types of things were just Mom. But while her wit, her courageous and adventurous spirit, and her tenacity and fun qualities, they don't define who she is. Mom is a disciple of Jesus Christ, and he is her God. Her deepest desires are to emulate him, and some of her most defining qualities are those of gentleness, steady faith, love, trust, loyalty, and non-judgment. That's who she is. I don't ever recall growing up and hearing her ever speak poorly of another person. That is why we revere her on such a high pedestal. And as children, we knew that she believed in us. I never heard her say, "Oh, I don't think you can accomplish that," or "You shouldn't set that as a goal." Or to her, we were good enough for anything and good enough for anybody. And that went a long ways. Her unconditional trust and belief in us, or unconditional love, resulted in our having unconditional love, trust, and belief in her. It worked both ways. We had her back, and she had ours. And what I love is I know that Mom knows and has always known how much each of us love her. There's no regrets there. Another of her greatest attributes is her supportive nature. As Debbie kind of described on that honeymoon trip, it started then, her undying support of our father. When I was 8 years old and living in New York, we moved our family out to San Juan Capistrano, where Dad bought Mom a home that he knew she would love. In fact, he never showed it to her beforehand. He just bought it, certain that she would love it, but she didn't. And we never knew that as kids. He was starting a new business with a large degree of risk, and she did not want to add to his pressure. So she decided to make this house into a home that she would love. And that's exactly what she did. She loved being home. And after trips away, one of the things that she always said when we pulled up into the driveway is she would recite the words of an old English nursery rhyme, home again, jiggity jig. And everyone in the station wagon knew what that meant, because we knew how much Mom loved her home and to be home with us. In fact, it was so common that when we would drive home, even from church or whatever, somebody might just say, home again, jiggity, or jiggity, and everyone knew what it all meant. Almost to a fault, she was supportive of us kids. I remember when Monica and I, as young newlyweds, had this far-flung idea to drop everything and join the Peace Corps and run a fish hatchery in Nepal. And so we presented that to Mom, and even then, she just nodded her head with a smile. Couldn't even bring herself to tell us how ridiculous we were. We never did it. And my dear Monica, as a daughter-in-law, could do no wrong. And this is coming from the ultimate homemaker to a new bride trying to figure out how to make a home. Everything she always did was perfect, according to Mom. Hey, Mom, what do you think of the way I changed my kitchen? Monica, it is perfect. That was her answer for anything that Monica ever did. And Monica was perfect. She was right about that. But she loved all of her sons and daughters-in-law as much as her own children. Mom was not one that wanted to be front and center. She did not feel that need nor that desire. She did not aspire to worldly fame, recognition, or accolades, or even possessions, but instead sought those Christ-like attributes treasured by her heavenly parents. She always had her eye on the real prize, on lasting things of eternal importance. If you think about it, she is the poster child for the proclamation of the family. Genuinely, of greatest importance to Mom was her family, her faith, and her home. And she was the ultimate homemaker because she made our home a place of love and of the Spirit, and showed each of us what that looked like and taught us how to achieve it. Because of her, we knew the ideal home was possible, or at least close to it. The results of her commitment to heavenly priorities over worldly influences are blessings enjoyed forever by hundreds of her posterity. What an eternal impact, not only on us kids, but on our kids and the kids of our kids and beyond. It is on full display this morning. She and Dad also showed us what a loving marriage looks like. They openly expressed affection for each other. They were first for each other, and we were a close second. There was no talking back to Mom ever, because Dad would not allow it. Mom was Dad's treasure, and he protected her. My dad and I worked pretty closely together for many years, and we were very close. Years before he got sick, I vividly remember the day when we sat across his desk and made a pact with each other that if anything ever had happened to me, he would take care of Monica forever. And if anything would have happened to him, I would take care of Mom. We had no idea that it would be a 30-year proposition, but I'm thankful for the opportunity all of us had as kids to serve her. I think it strengthened us, and I believe it made us more holy. And I think she grew from overcoming the tremendous challenges these past years too. See, she and Dad were one. And I think that might be why her struggles were such, because she didn't just lose her friend or the other person. She literally lost part of herself. And it was always a challenge to recoup that for her. I hope, Dad, when I return and report someday, you will be pleased with our efforts. So our focus today is not on Mom's departure, but on her arrival. I know that our cries of sadness for losing her, for we will miss her greatly, will be drowned out by the shouts of rejoicing in the heavens to receive her. Mom lives. And the notion that Mom lives is not just wishful thinking, but it is an essential part of God's eternal plan for his children. When Jesus overcame death and was resurrected, he gifted immortality to all mankind. I know that Mom lives because I know that Jesus lives. And how do I know that she is with her husband? Because Mom was sealed to him at the holy altar of God by the power and authority of God for time and all eternity. And that gives me great peace. Our father passed away while we were in the middle of a family prayer with all 6 kids, a sacred moment that we will never forget. When Mom was ready, as Debbie said, we all prayed with her too at her bedside. And then we shared experiences about Dad, sort of prepping her for their reunion. We laughed as one of the last things that she heard was of a trip to Hawaii that all 6 of us had, plus Greg Stapley, who had recently married Debbie. We were in a rented van driving along a closed and dangerous dirt road with a cliff on one side and a steep mountain on the other side. The road became increasingly narrow, and Dad continued to press forward until he finally gave up his persistence to continue forward and, defeated, had to slowly back up with no help because no one could get out of the car because the mountain was there and the cliff was there. Greg was probably wondering what kind of a family he married into. But Mom, of course, in her always supportive nature, stood by his side even then. Always solidarity. Each was fiercely committed to unity. They were one. And that example not only practically helped guide us as kids, but it showed us how to be with our spouses. And I'm so glad that they will now be completed again. Mom, the road ahead for you now is not like that narrow dirt road, but it is wide and brightly lit with your wonderful husband Don at your side. The best years are yet to come. To illustrate the principle of focusing on her arrival over her departure, I will conclude with a poem by Henry Van Dyke. I am standing upon the seashore. A ship at my side spreads her white sails to the morning breeze and starts for the blue ocean. She is an object of beauty and strength. I stand and watch her until at length she hangs like a speck of white cloud just where the sea and the sky come to mingle with each other. Then someone by my side says, "There, she is gone." Gone where? Gone from sight, that is all. She is just as large in mast and hull and spar as she was when she left my side, and she is just as able to bear the load of living freight to her destined port. Her diminished size is in me, not in her. And just at the moment when someone at my side says, "There she is gone," there are others' eyes watching her coming, and other voices ready to take up the glad shout, "Here she comes!" And that is dying. We already miss you, Mom, and are so grateful that you were chosen to be our mother. Home again, chickadee chick. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.